Hello guys, the next task we're going to try and do in the spreadsheet topic that we're running through at the moment is I'm going to try and work with you. We're all going to build a actual computer game within a spreadsheet. It should cover all sorts of different formulas that we're going to need to use, as well as things like conditional formatting to allow us to make this game. The game that I'm going to try and make is a sort of theme park design game where you design and build the theme park, and then do things like build it and hire staff, balance the books, work out how much to charge for tickets and things like that. So we're going to start off with a blank spreadsheet. I should have provided a blank spreadsheet for each of you to use within the Google Classroom. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name the spreadsheet. So we're going to call it the theme park design game. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to be creating a load of different sheets here for the game. The first sheet we're going to call introduction, and I'm going to rename sheet 1 down here as introduction. So this is going to at some point it's going to explain the rules of the game and how to play it. We're not going to spend any time working on that today, so I'm going to click on the add sheet. This next sheet is going to be called the site design, and we're going to format and change this sheet now before we make any of the other sheets that we're going to be using. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to resize the cells in this spreadsheet. I'm going to want them all square, and I want them to be about twice the height that they currently are, and about half the width to make them roughly square. Now the way we can do that is to select this box to select all the cells on the sheet, and by moving just the top cell, top row here, by putting the mouse when it turns blue and turns into the arrows pointing up and down, dragging down to about twice the height, to double the height of all the cells, and then I'm going to reduce the width of the cells by about half, so that I now have this. Each of the cells is now roughly square. Now I don't have enough columns available. By default you get up to Z, and we're going to want way more than that. So I'm going to click on A, and I'll notice I've clicked on the actual letter A to highlight the entire column. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and click on Z, so that's going to select all of the columns. I'm now going to right click on any one of the letters along the top and select the insert 26 right. So we're going to get another 26 columns, and that takes us up to AZ. I think I'm going to go further still, so I'm going to, let's try from AM to AZ. Again, clicking on AM, holding Shift down, clicking on AZ, right click. Let's do it further left so we can see the menu. Insert 14 right. What does that get us to? We need to get to BH. So there's BH. We need up to BH. So all the columns after BH we can get rid of. So I click on that one, hold Shift, click on this one, right click, delete. So we need to go from A all the way up to BH. Now I think I'm going to make these squares a bit smaller because I want to be able to get more of this on the screen at the same time. So I'm just going to select on everything again. I'm going to reduce the height of the rows and then the width to make them square again, roughly about there. That's better. I've now got the whole range on the screen. Now we're not going to need beyond, I would say, 39 or 40. Let's say 40. So I'm going to click on the row 40. I'm then going to scroll down to the very bottom, hold Shift and click on row 1000, and we're going to delete those rows. So we've got up to row 39, and from column A all the way to column BH. You'll notice that it goes A, B, C, D all the way up to Z. Then it goes back to A, but now we've got AA, and then AB, AC, AD, AE, and we go all the way up to Z, AZ, and then we start on B, BA, BB, BC, BD, and so on. So once we've got this sort of laid out the way that we want to, we're going to start dividing up the page so that we can use it. So the aim of the site design here is that we are going to give the player an area of land, and it's going to have features like rivers, lakes, trees, grass, mountains, for them to use to build their theme park. And the idea here is that they're going to, on this particular task in the game, is they're going to be changing the site. So they're going to be filling in lakes or digging new ones or leveling mountains or building up mountains and things like that. So we're going to have what's called a UI, which is a user interface. So this is an area of the screen, the game screen, which the game isn't played in, but has things like options and instructions and buttons and things that explain what you need to do. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select the whole of the top row. You can choose whatever color you want for this, but I'm going to go with a color that I know I'm not going to be using in the terrain. It's important we don't use a color that we're going to use in the terrain, so I'm going to go with dark purple. I'm going to then select the columns from A to H and highlight them and fill them all dark purple too. So we've got this sort of area. Now this is going to be our UI, where we do things like give instructions and have options for them to use. And then this area here, all that's white, is going to be our game area, where they are going to be controlling and changing things, and they're going to be designing their site. I have created quite a few cells. So each one of these cells, imagine like Minecraft, each one of these cells is going to be a block of color, and we can use this area to create a landscape. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use what's called conditional formatting. That basically the spreadsheet will look at whatever value is held inside the cell, and then it will use that value to decide what color to make that cell. So for example, first of all we need to click on I2 here, I2, hold the shift key down, scroll to the bottom and hold the shift key down and click on BH39. That will select our entire game area there, and we're going to go to format and conditional formatting. So when you open conditional formatting, this little menu appears at the side, and this is where we control the rules that that control what color the cells are going to be. So we're going to use numbers inside the cells to choose what sort of color they are, and therefore what type of terrain they are. So I'm going to check that the range is correct. The range should be that this ruler applies to this range. So it applies from I2 all the way down to BH 39. So I'm going to then say this is the condition. So color the cell if this is true, whatever we put in here. And what we're going to use is we're going to scroll down and get the is equal to. And then we're going to put the value. So if the cell is equal to this value, it does this formatting. So I'm going to put in the number 0, and I'm going to choose a nice green grass sort of color. And I'm also going to make the text, currently the text is black, which stands out a little too much, so I'm going to choose a sort of a lighter green so that we can see the text, but it's not standing out too much. So now when I click OK, or done, sorry, we've now got this rule up here. And what we can test it out first of all. So if I come over here and I put a 0 into this cell and press enter, you can see it immediately turns that cell green. I can then drag this all the way across. Notice what I did is I put the mouse on the bottom right hand corner on the little blue square, dragged all the way to the end, and it puts whatever's in that cell, so 0, into all of the other cells. And as soon as those zeros go into the cell, this rule kicks in and says, oh, it's 0 in the cell, that cell must be green. I can now highlight all of that row and do the same thing by dragging it down and get it. So we now have one giant green field for us to build in. Now, we're going to make a rule in this that you can only build your theme park on green grass. We're going to have lots of other terrains like mountains, rivers, lakes, trees and things like that. And the aim of this task is to change them, to make the mountains lower if you don't want them there, or build a mountain in a different location, or to change the route of a river or the position of a lake or something like that, to add more trees or to reduce and get rid of trees. And each one of those different types of terrain is going to be a different number that we're going to insert. So we'll need a different rule, a new rule to accommodate each of the cells, the different types of terrain, sorry. So once again, I need to highlight the range first, the area of the spreadsheet that I want the rule to apply to. And I'm going to set my next rule to be forest. Let's do forest next. So once again, I select format cells if they are equal to 1. And if they're 1, we're going to say that's forest, and I'm going to take a dark green and a slightly lighter green for forest. Click OK. So now if I change this to a 1, I've now got an area of forest or some trees, and I can start making little areas of trees like this, and maybe like that. There we go, we've got a nice little forest there in the middle of our area. Now the player would have to change these values back to 0 if they wanted it to be grass. But what we're going to do is by changing that to 0, that's going to cost money. There's going to be a monetary value to changing terrain. And then they're going to design their site, but the more they change, the more it's going to cost them. And what we can do as the game designer is we can set the initial layout. So we could make it really hard and give them a really difficult one with lots of mountains, lots of forest and very little grass, and they have to spend a lot of money developing the site. Or we can give them a nice easy one with big grass plains with just maybe a few trees to deal with and a few small rocks. But we can choose. We can, as the game designer, we can decide how we're going to do that. So that is how we're going to do the forest. We're now going to have a go at the opposite of coming up off the ground. So we're saying 0 is the level of the ground, and 1 is going to be just up from the ground, is going to be treetops. So this is the top of the trees. We're going to go the other way now. We're going to go and make a lake. So I've once again highlighted from I2 down to BH39. I'm going to create a new rule, is equal to -1. So if it's -1, we're going to say that's shallow water. So I'm going to choose this sort of light blue and an even lighter text color and click OK. So now if I put in a -1 here, I got this shallow water, and I can drag this along to make a bit of a river, like so. And you can spend as much time as you want to. You might want to make it a little wider there to try and make it look like a river. And then at the end of this river, say, let's just take this all the way to the edge of the game screen. We're going to try and avoid just straight lines. It makes life too easy for the player. So do make it wiggle all over the place. The only thing I wouldn't do is put a -1 there and then a -1 there like that. Because that doesn't really look like the river continues, does it? So if you want to do that, you'd have to put one in there so it looks like the river is actually one flowing river. At the end of this river, I want to build a lake. Now, a lake contains some shallow water, but also some deeper water. So now, once again, click on I2, drag down to the bottom to highlight the range, add a new rule. The new rule is equal to -2, and we're going to say this is darker blue. Let's go with that one, and the text is a slightly lighter blue, and okay. So if we want, let's have an area of a lake here. I'll build a bit of a lake. Let's highlight all of that and then pull it across, and then maybe just this bit out a bit there, and maybe that out a bit there. Okay, and then I want the middle bit here to be deeper. So I'm going to change this one to -2. You can see we get that darker blue, and we'll just sort of build a bit of a deeper bit to this lake in the middle. Okay, so we're able to use this conditional formatting to start creating this game map that they're going to build their theme park on. So I'm going to add a couple more now. So we've got 0 is the grass, the level of the grass. Then if we go below the level of the grass, we hit water. And if we go below the level of the shallow water, we get into the deeper water. Now going the other way, let's have some rock, hills and mountains and things like that. So we're going to, once again, I2 down to BH39. New rule is equal to 2. And 2 is going to be the beginning of rocks. So I'm going to choose a dark grey, maybe this one, and a slightly lighter grey so that the text stands out. And I'm without changing anything, I've still got them all selected. I'm just going to add some more rules. So is equal to 3. We're going to go with a slightly lighter rock and a slightly lighter text, and a new rule is equal to value, what are we on now, 4 I think, slightly lighter rock, and slightly lighter text. Another rule, I think we'll go up to 6, so is equal to 5. I'm going to go with a lighter grey and an even lighter text. And then finally, we'll do 6 is equal to 6. And this is going to be like our snow-capped tops to our mountains. So we'll make that white on that light grey. You can just about see it. That's fine. So now what we can do is we can start creating a bit of a mountain. So the first thing we're building, stacking this up. Imagine it as like Lego blocks or Duplo blocks or something. So I'm going to put in a 2, sorry. And we can build the base of our mountain. We'll make it a sort of a weird shaped mountain. I'm just highlighting and using that little blue box to drag and put that value down across there. And let's have some, we don't want it to have that straight edge along the back. Let's make it a bit more irregular, like so maybe. And Just grab a little bit of this top edge and pull it up. Okay. Then we're going to build the next layer. So the next layer is going to be higher than the layer below. So this time I'm going to go with 3. And let's have this. We don't want it to be regular, so there is always 2, then 1 cell in, 3, and so make each layer as sort of regular as possible, irregular as possible, I should say. Be careful that you don't do what I just did there, which is when it goes to the hand, I drag that, that's going to leave that cell empty. So I'm just going to click undo. You're wanting to use the little blue box and wait until you get the crosshairs to show that you are in the right place. And just take this one down. There we go. And then on top of that, we're going to have the next layer. So we're going to move up to 4. As you can see, this getting lighter and lighter as we get further up the mountain. Just drag that down. And then we're going to have an area of 5. I'm going to put a really steep cliff here, so put a 5 in there and make it like so. And then the peak is going to be our 6. There we go. So that is our mountain, and you can put as many mountains as you want, and then dot trees all over the place. And we can see these as individual trees or small woodlands. We can add more rivers and stuff like that. So this is going to make our game map. And I'd like you to spend some time to fill out your whole map so that you've got other mountains and maybe some individual rocks dotted around that they have to deal with, like so. And forests and maybe some more streams, maybe a bigger lake and things like that. The more you change it away from the light green, the more it's going to cost the player to develop this site into a theme park. But also we're going to have later on a sheet that looks at the environmental impact of our theme park, and it's going to do things like see how many bits of forest are there, how much water is there for wildlife, how much mountain ranges for various organisms or hills you've left in. So it's going to be, the whole game is going to be about balancing things. Balancing the environmental impact against the cost, against how much money you can earn from it, and things like that. So we've almost finished this. We've just got an important step to do. So what we need is an idea of what to do if somebody, instead of puts a 0, puts some writing. As soon as they put some writing, it's going to kick out of this because these are all looking for numbers. 0, 1, -1, -2, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And as soon as they put letters in, it's going to cause a problem. And we want to highlight immediately that there is a problem. So we're going to use this area up at the top here, and we're going to make a sort of error bar. This is going to turn red and become, say, error in it if they do something like this. We also need to make sure that they don't go above 7. Above 6, sorry, to 7, because we don't have a conditional format for that. So if I put a 7 in, you'll see it turns white because we don't actually have a rule to cover if it's above 7. So I'm going to instead put that back to 0. I'm going to create a formula in this bar that is going to look at all of these and check that they are all numbers between -2 and +6. So to do that, our error bar, I'm going to highlight I1 all the way along to BH1, and I'm going to click on merge cells here to turn that into one whopping great cell. Okay, we're now going to create a formula. Now this formula uses a couple of different features. So the first feature is going to be a countif. So it's going to count count a cell if the cell is above -3. So if it's above -3, that means it could be -2 or any number above -3. So we're going to say equals count if, there it is, the function we want. It tells us to create a range. So I'm going to select this whole range, which is I2 to B. Oh, we need to go further to BH39. You don't have to select using the mouse. You can just type it in. So capital I2 and then a colon BH39, and it will automatically select that area. So we're going to count all the cells in that area if they are greater than -3. Notice I put the greater sign, which is the arrow pointing right, and I put the value, which is -3, but I have to remember to put them in speech marks. Okay, otherwise it will throw out an error. So it will count all the cells if the value in the cells is greater than -3. So there is the start of our formula. I'm just going to close the brackets and press enter, and let's see if it's come up with a number. There, it's got a number. So we've got a number of 1976. Okay, so that's how many cells, because we can see that all the cells have a value above -3. So that is an important number. We're going to need that number. So I'm going to take this opportunity now to create a new sheet. We're going to call this sheet in capitals dev for development. So this sheet is not going to be visible but to the player. I'll show you later how we're going to hide this sheet, but it's got some important things in it that that allow us to play the game. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm just going to log that number. So number of cells in game window. Oh, I've done it all in capitals. Let's do that again. Number of cells in game window. And I'm going to say that is 1976. Was it 1976? 1976? 1976, good. So we're going to need to remember that number, so I've just recorded it. So we're now going to develop that because we also want another condition. We want to make sure that it's going to count all the cells in this area that are above -3 but also below 7. So we're going to say, we're going to change this from a count if, which only has one condition, to a count ifs with an S on the end. Count ifs, so that we can now have multiple criteria. So multiple conditions. So I'm going to click after my close brackets. I'm going to put a comma. I'm going to type that range again. So I2 to BH39. Notice I don't have to put it in capitals. It will highlight it anyway. But I recommend, so that you don't confuse yourself later on, that you always use capitals for your cell references, otherwise you will start confusing yourself. Comma, and then the next condition. The next condition is going to be that it is less than 7. The number shouldn't change because we don't have any values that are greater than 7 or less than -3. We can prove this by changing this to a -3, and you can see the numbers drop down by 1, and if we change that one to 7, it should drop down again. Okay, so we've proved that that little formula works. So we want the number of cells to always be equal to 1976. We want that to stay the same. And we can do a little test, because as soon as we replace something with maybe some writing, it's going to drop the number. If we put in a value less than or equal to -3, it's going to drop that value. Or if it's greater than 6, it's going to drop that value. So as long as we know that that value doesn't change, we know that they aren't breaking any of the rules. They are only staying within, and they're going to stay within the rules that we have created. So we're going to now do a check on this number. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to say at the beginning, click right to the beginning. Where's my mouse pointer? There we go. And I'm going to say if. Oh, it's gone on insert. I don't like it when it does this. If is it? It's still doing overwrite. Hang on. There we go. We're going back to the right. So if count if, and then get rid of that because we made a bit of a mess up of that. So we've got if count if. So if the value that we just calculated over here, that was 1976, is equal to, is less than 1976, that means that they must have changed, either made it a 7 or made it -3 or put some letters in. Then that number will drop, remember? So if it is less, then we're going to put our first value if that is true. So if this is true, that they have changed something and broken the rules, we're going to display the word error. Notice if I want it to display text, I have to put it in speech marks. And then the value if that's not true. So if that's not true, if they have stuck to the rules, I don't want to say anything in this bar, and I'm just going to put it as 2 speech brackets with nothing in between them to say that to put nothing in this cell. Now close the bracket and press enter. Now what have we got? We've got an NA, we've got an error with this, and it's not liking something about this. So what's it not liking about that? Have we? Oh, it's because I didn't put count ifs. Make sure it's a count ifs. Then it will accept 2 conditions. Okay, press enter and enter. So it should now be blank. There should be nothing in that cell. I'm going to just format Architect's Daughter. I quite like the font Architect's Daughter. Make it bold, make it 14, center the text. So let's test this out. So if I were to put something in here that breaks the rule, we get an error. If I change it to a -3 that breaks the rule, we get an error. If I make it a 7 that breaks the rule, we get an error. But if I change it back to 0, the error is gone. Now, to make this a bit easier for the player, I'm going to select this and I'm going to create a conditional formatting rule that is going to check if the text is exactly error in capitals, because I wrote it in capitals in the formula. We're going to fill in black. We're going to make the text white, bold. We can underline it, maybe even make it italic. Okay, and click done. So now when I change this and put some letters in, we get a nice clear message that we have made an error. Later on we will do things like not allow them to do other things in the project until they resolve this error, until they fix it. So replace that with a 0 and the error should disappear. There we go. So we've got a little bit of testing. We've used a countif and an if formula to do some checking on the information we've got. And we've done some conditional formatting to allow us to create our game site, the site that the player is going to be building their theme park in. The last thing we're going to do is finish this UI area to the left here. So to do that, I'm going to use things like merge cells a lot. I'm going to do some typing and an explanation. I'm going to use column A and column H and row 1 as borders. So I'm only going to work within this bar so that I've got a nice border around this UI. It'll just make it look better than if text is coming right up to the game window. So the first thing I'm going to do is have a title. And to do that, I'm going to select row 2. Now we have to be careful here that we don't stretch the rows, because it will make everything look really weird. So instead of using this row, and I could maybe put some text in it, and if you wanted size 24 or something that's far bigger than the row, instead of it automatically resizing the row to fit the text, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a box that we know is going to fit the text in. It includes multiple cells, and then we're going to merge them together to make one cell or one box. And here's the title. So I'm going to call this capitals site design. And I'll do a bit more formatting to that. I'm going to put it in the middle vertically and put it in the middle horizontally. I'm going to let's do this for all of this column. We're going to make it all centered. We're going to make it all centered vertically. We're going to also make it all bold. No, we won't make it all bold, but we will make it all Architect's Daughter, which is my favorite font. And we're going to change the text size to 14. Okay, so you can see that will change everything now. We won't have to keep changing it for all the other cells. But I do want this title to be bold, and I want the text color. I should have done that also, so I'm just going to do that again. Highlight those columns, change the text color to white so it stands out nicely. And I'm also going to give this cell a border that is white just around the outside. So we've got a nice little title up there. Then I'm going to have a little leave a cell empty, and now I'm going to create a box in which I'm going to give a bit of instruction. So I'm going to select 3 rows. Remember not to select your borders down the edge. I'm going to merge them, and I'm going to type a bit of an instruction. So I'm going to say this. Oh, let's take it off caps lock. This is your site. You need to make your site ready to build your theme park. Full stop. Now you can see that that is not displaying the text correctly. We need to turn on word wrapping. So we need to wrap the text. And now you can see it's kind of displaying it properly, but our box is not big enough for all of the text. So I'm going to just select a few more rows and then click merge until we've got that all the text inside the box. And I'm now going to give that a border. So there we go. Next, we're going to have a really important rule. So I'm going to take 2 rows of of 2 rows, and then I'm going to type in here the really important rule. I'll put it in capitals because it's really important. You can only build on grass. Really important rule to our game. Again, I need to put it on text wrapping, and I'm going to make it bold, and I'm going to give it a border. Okay. Now I'm going to have a bit more explanation of what they need to do. So I'm going to take a big box here. I'm going to merge the cells, and I'm going to type. Changing, oh, still in caps lock. Changing the site costs money. Full stop. You can fill in water or demolish stone. The higher the stone, or deeper the water, the more it will cost to make it level. It's quite a long sentence. I don't think that box is going to be big enough. We'll check now. So word wrapping, wrap that text. It's not quite big enough. Let's just take an extra row, merge those cells. Oh, I think we're going to need one more row. Merge those cells. There we go. Border time. Good. Next, we're going to have this box here, is this area here. We're going to have the as they change these, we're going to have this value showing how much they've spent. How much have they spent in making these changes? So to do that, I'm going to first take this row 23, and I'm going to join them, and I'm going to type in here cost, in caps, cost of changes. And then I'm going to highlight two rows and merge them. I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to select this one, all borders for this. So we're going to, in a minute, work on how to calculate how much all of these changes is going to cost, and we want that number to go in there. And as we change this, though, that number is going to change. Now we need a bit of an instruction on how they go about developing their sites. So I'm going to merge these cells into a box, and I'm going to type to change your site, simply enter the correct number using the table below. We're going to have to create a table in a second. I'm going to wrap that text. Is it big enough? No, it's not. So let's make it big enough. Just about big enough. I think we'll play it safe and just take an extra row. And give it a border. So we don't have many more rows to work with. So I'm going to have to make some changes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this text size down to 12. Now this means that I've got more space now. What I'm going to do for that is I'm going to unmerge cells, and it puts it all in the top cell, and I'm just going to take these three and merge them, and that's now big enough. So I'm going to give that a border. I'm then going to take these cells here. I'm going to take their border away. I can now grab this one. That's the important rule. I'm not going to change its text size and just drag it up. To do that, I will get the hand, click, drag up. That's given ourselves two more rows. This one, drop the text size down to 12. I think I can probably get away with taking away 3 of those. So unmerge them, so we get all the individual cells. I said I was going to take 3 rows out. Let's see if that's enough space. It looks like it. Give it a border. get the hand and drag it up. There we go. Take all of this and take away the border. This one, it's important that it stays big, so I'm going to just drag that one up as it is. And then this one, this text we can drop down to 12. We can unmerge it. We can select just the top 3, merge, border, drag it up into position, and then finally get rid of the border on this. Now we've got all these white bars, but that's easy to remedy. We're going to just highlight them and fill them with our dark purple. And this one, dark purple. And then all of that, dark purple. I just need to make this border around there again. So we've basically condensed all of this. We've now got more than enough space for us to create our table. So this table is going to tell them the different codes that they need to use to make the changes required here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first 4 columns there and merge them into one cell, and then the next 2 and merge them into one cell. Then I'm going to select them both. I'm going to press Control. Oh no, I think we can just grab this. Oh, grab this. There we go, and drag that down like so that we basically repeated whatever we've done there in the cells below. All those merges. Save us doing it one at a time. I'm going to type in this one. Landscape maybe. Landscape. And this is going to be code. Capital code. And I'm going to say, so we're going to have grass is 0. We're going to have forest. No, let's just write trees. 1. Shallow. Oops. Water. Just about fits. I think what I'm going to do is just drop the text size for these down to 12, just to guarantee it fits in the cell, and make that -1. Deep water. In fact, let's select all of these and change the text size down to 12. Is -2. And then we had our stone. So stone, I'm going to call it stone level 1. Stone level 2. Oh, need a space there. 2. Now what we can do, spreadsheets are designed to spot numbers and when they change. So if I select these 2 and drag down, see how it's repeated them, but it's changed the number for us, which is very convenient. And I can say 3 and 4, highlight those 2, and it will look at the difference is 1 and keep adding them. There we go. But we don't need stone level 5, 6, or that 7, so I'm just going to delete them. Then I'm going to select it all, give it a border around the outside, and then just the top row, all borders. And then the last column there, a border. So there we go. So we've now got instructions on what to do, how to play this. We've got a little table that tells them what they need to do in here and instructions on how to use it. The last thing we're going to do is have a look at this value here. We want a value, the cost of how much this is going to cost to make these changes to the land. So I'm going to jump over to my dev page, my development page, and I'm going to put in a new value, and that is going to be cost of height change. And we can put any value we want in here. I'm going to put in, let's say it's going to cost £100 per height change, whatever that height change, whether it's lowering a mountain by one level, or digging a lake down by one level, or filling in a lake by one level. Whichever it is, it's going to cost £100. I'm going to format that as currency, so it's £100. I'm then going to say I need to know what the starting position that we are going to give the player is. Okay, so let's assume that we're going to cheat slightly and just copy and paste another of exactly the same mountain. Oops, no, we need to make sure we don't go off the page. Another same mountain, and I'm going to put another lake, and copy, put some forest there, and this one copy, paste there. So basically I've just copy pasted, and then I'll just put some ones all over the place, the odd two, just to add a bit of variety. Maybe extend this river off there, or let's have the rivers connect. There we go. So let's say that's the starting position I'm going to give the player. So now what we need to do is we need to find out what the current height values are and add them all up. So I'm going to say starting position on my dev page is going to be equal to sum means add, all of the numbers in that area. Okay, so that tells us that our starting position, the values of all the numbers in these cells, is 680. What we're going to do then is compare the changes they've made to that 680. Now currently we've used the sum, and that is going to change. So if I was to come back here and put an extra tree in, remember it was 780, put an extra tree in there, and it's now 781. That is what we would call dynamic. It's constantly going to change based on what we do. So it's not really our starting position, that is our current position. So let's call that our current position. And then here we have the starting position was 680. And I'll just type it in this time. So that now won't change. No matter what we do to this site, we add some more rocks. Our current position value has changed, but our starting position hasn't. We're now going to compare these two and find out what the difference is. So we say difference is going to be starting position minus, in here, equals starting position minus current position. We've got a -5. Now we don't care whether it is minus or positive. We just need that as a positive number for the change. So I can make this a positive number. If it's negative, I can always make it a positive number by multiplying it. I'm going to put some brackets. Should remember these from maths. Put brackets around it. And multiplying, which is the star times -1. That will make it positive. But if it is already positive, then we don't want to multiply it by 1. So, whenever we want to do one thing or another, we need an if statement. If this is less than 0, so it's negative, multiply, yeah, we want this, copy, paste, times -1. Otherwise, if this value is equal to 0 or greater than 0, then we're going to say we don't multiply it by 1, and it's just going to be that. Close brackets, enter. So we got a 5 there, no matter whether this is this calculation produces a negative number or a positive number, we're always going to get a positive difference. So we can go here now, and I can, I don't know, grab this bit of mountain, copy it, and put another bit of mountain in there, something like that, and we can see we've now got a big positive difference. Finally, we want the cost of changes, and that is going to be equal to this difference times the cost. So it's going to cost, wow, £30,000, £30,800 to make those changes that we've just done from our starting position. So in here, I'm going to say this is equal to whatever's in this cell. So there we go. If I then go back to my starting position, I would have to have made a copy of it or something. That we can get that back down to 0. Where we can do that is making these two values the same. So if I change this up to 988, the difference is now 0, and therefore the cost of changes is 0. We go back here and it will say 0. This is our new starting position, and they have to make changes. Let's say they wanted to get rid of this mountain altogether, and drag that down, get rid of it altogether. That's going to cost them £41,000 to remove that mountain. £41,500 to remove that mountain, and it should show there. Okay, so that is part 1 of our game complete, where they develop the actual site. In the next tutorial, we're going to work on actually placing the rides and attractions and actually building the park itself on the land that they have just developed. So I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Bye bye.